Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to look at this old code that I wrote for testing. It was when I was in the military. The only tools that I had available to me on a computer were Notepad and the web browser. I wasn't allowed to install any additional software. I wasn't able to emulate a server, so there was no server-side code possible. Essentially, I was writing small applications using Notepad that would run right in the web browser. Clearly, I had some limitations as far as disk access and some other things. Also, this was at least 6 years ago that I was working on most of this. I had a friend that used to work with me back then. He was aware of some of the work that I did and some of the tools that I made. And he reached out to me recently wanting to get a hold of some of the tools that I wrote. But the code that I wrote isn't really structured for easy repurposing. I had no professional experience as a software developer or programmer. Now, what I'm going to do is look at that old tool, analyze how I structured it, and look for opportunities to improve it. And once we've done that in this video, I'm going to do a new video where we're going to incorporate some of those improvements so that we can pass this off to my friend, and hopefully it will also be something that I can put on my portfolio. So here's my preemptive to-do list. The format that I used to use for these wasn't too bad. Starting with this index, I added my external link to a style sheet. I had a main div that I used for all of my input-output. I created a key bindings. I created a JavaScript auto questions and a JavaScript engine file. So I'm not too sure what we'll find in here. I haven't looked at this in many years. Let's start with the key bindings first. I do remember I incorporated a system for navigating and using this system using keys. This was kind of lazy of me just to copy and paste this whole thing, but here we can, below here, these are the initial key bindings. So it looks like I even made it so that it could be reprogrammable. I don't remember if I put a screen in the little program for switching your keys around, but here are the initial key bindings. So we set default key bindings just to save those. I'd imagine there's some sort of restore defaults. So when this initially loads, it loads in all those initial key bindings. And then the user can change these safely and we still have a backup copy. Perhaps we can see that in action right away. If I start here, go to keyboard options, show options, here's my configuration. So I guess it's not lazy of me to have kept that entire list of possible keys, since now I have given the user access to all of those. I don't know if I have any checks in here for duplicates. If I were to make A and B both the 2 key, and that restore defaults got kind of done, but if I hit done, oh, yep, so I do have some checks. So this was not a bad system. Visually, this thing could use a major update, and that is one of the things I plan on attempting. So let's go back here and take a look at the next file. So if we go back to our index, the next one was the auto questions. I'm not sure why I separated that concept from the engine. So these are the actual questions. Here I was pushing them in and I had them separated by these comment lines. I've got pools and sets. I believe if we go all the way down to the bottom, this is how I get those sets. It goes through, first it goes through the pool and creates an empty array. So I'm duplicating the data. It would be nice if I could create a data structure that would allow me to maintain that concept of pools and sets without having to duplicate the data, because that is what we're doing here. I'm not really sure what this is to avoid duplication. So here's a really good example of my novice thinking. It got the job done. It certainly works well, but this is not ideal at all. I need a better data structure. So we've already got a couple of things for our to-do list. First, a visual update. I have some ideas for that. I don't want to invest too much time in this. Look into pre-made CSS systems. Just want it to be quick and easy. Don't want to make this a big deal. The next thing is the data structure, current system duplicates data, need a system allows for various query methods. So moving on to the engine, which I know is next. We have our keyboard event system. It's a decent system. Perhaps this can be refactored. It does seem a little bit weird to be duplicating this if key up all the time. Yeah, just we'll consider that a cleanup. Refactor code duplication whenever possible. So that may be all over the place. Who knows? Here's the only place that anything different happens other than these. I mean, there are various actions that happen, but there's so much code that is completely duplicated here. I almost feel like the best refactoring here is actually going to be to store functions for these various bindings that will, actions that will take place when they're activated. That way it'll be a very simple check to see if it was a key up, and then activate any bindings that that are associated with key up actions, and then execute their code, including their conditions and everything as a function that I'm passing around to execute. I do believe that's going to be cleaner. Let's go ahead and put that in. So more specifically, keyboard store bindings with actions to execute, including their trigger. Key up is for most of them, I believe. So we can define those somewhere else. Maybe we'll have a separate instead of just key bindings, maybe have a keyboard handling class or something. I don't know. Cleaning that up will move a lot of this logic into another place, which could be good. I mean, you can see this file is absolutely massive. Yeah, there's over 700 lines of code in here. That's not ideal. Going beyond the key bindings here, we have an onload function that does some preparation. We are, looks like, attaching that keyboard stuff. Yep, so this is a good candidate to go in with that setup as well. Include the window event setup here as well. So that'll be decent refactoring. I don't know why we have the entire alphabet here. I do remember that was something that I did on many projects for various reasons. Honestly, I'm not even too sure. We'll see how I used it, and depending on how it's being used, it may or may not go. So here we go, check letter, format options. Div class, this is a lot of duplicated code as well. Interesting. So back to that code duplication, certainly that's going to be, oh, and then we've got our class. So some of this stuff, we're just going to need a whole lot more files just to keep it cleaner, to make it easier to, as a developer, to navigate and figure out what's going on. I mean, I essentially have this major, I mean, it looks like this engine is driving everything. Oh, and I duplicated this MC multiple choice question concept. Ooh, this is, there's a lot of room for improvement here. So maybe I'm not going to go into too much detail, but this file looks pretty horrible too. So I will be documenting, possibly in more than one video, the process of cleaning all of this up. So let's just look at a couple more things here. So this is that question formatter. So if I was creating a new question, the question creation process is going to need to be more flexible. I want the user to be able to select which volumes and CDC sets. And maybe I don't want it to be CDC specific. Perhaps the best option is to make a Let's see. Question creator. User should be able to specify set subset without editing a file. This is again going to, it's going to come back to that data structure. I designed this around the concept of being able to have more than just multiple choice questions. I'll reach out to my friend and see if he needs anything other than multiple choice questions. If not, maybe we'll just make this specifically for multiple choice questions. So do we need more than just multiple choice questions? Do we really want to allow adding more than 4? Oh, maybe I didn't allow more than 4. Add an option. Oh, no, I definitely did. So these are questions for my friend. So clarification questions. Only multiple choice. Oh, only 4 possible answers, or need more flexibility. Finally, we've got the parser. I do want to try to tackle a new parser for him. I don't feel that JavaScript is going to be the best option for doing that, especially if it's an encrypted PDF. There is a chance. I want to do a search online and just see. We'll put this here. So automated parsing. Look up possibility of reading an encrypted PDF from using a C# library, maybe. That's what I'm most comfortable with lately, and a little C# utility could be handy for him. I mean, the only other possibility, and this would be, I want this to be quick, and it would not be quick. He could take screenshots of the questions, and we could use some sort of optical character recognition or something. I feel like this is a pretty good start. When we start refactoring, clearly there's going to be a lot more to do. Let's do in kind of an immediate to do. This is my assignments. So starting from the top, settle on a CSS system. I think I already have one to look into, so that shouldn't take too long. Research C# library for reading text from an encrypted PDF. Ask my friend the questions above. All right, so that's my homework, but that does it for kind of the overview of where we're at and what I want to do with it. There you have it. Thanks for coming to join me for this, and we'll see what happens next time. Bye.